So he asked me out on a date our sophomore year of college. And I remember that first date, him asking me after we had had dinner, and we were just kind of talking after dinner, and him asking me, out of the 3 virtues of faith, hope, and love, which is your favorite? And this is my favorite, and these are all the reasons why. And he just was very, he seemed to be very into his faith and very rounded, which were things I was looking for, for several months there, even as we started to date then, in a, committed relationship. It seemed to be great. He seemed to treat me well, and I really enjoyed being with him. He was funny. A lot of people really liked him. And so I just remember the beginning of our relationship just thinking, wow, this guy really is amazing. He's everything I ever hoped for. He proposed to me our senior year of college. We got married in May of 2017. The wedding was everything I'd ever hoped for. Felt like a dreamy day. Looking back now, even just in our relationship and leading up to our wedding, I, with all kind of the therapy and the work that I've done, I can see a lot of red flags now. It was almost immediately after the wedding band went on. He just seemed off, but I couldn't quite pinpoint it. We got pregnant right away, and that was planned. That was what I had always wanted, was to be a young mom and to be a mom. And I remember one day just saying to him, I feels like we haven't even had a date night in months. That was enough to set him off. So he started screaming at me. So then the next morning, I said, I'd really like to finish talking this through, and can we just find a time to be able to spend time together? And so then he started screaming at me that morning, and we were planning to go for his work to be a part of a tailgate at a football game that day. It was a Saturday. I really would like to be able to finish talking through this, and resolve this, because he had been screaming and just, very, very angry. And he said, no, I'm going to the tailgate. We were both planning to go, but he was like, I'm going. And when I go, you better not be here when I get back. And I remember asking him, you don't mean that. What do you mean? Where would I go? Where do you want me to go if I'm not here when you get back from this tailgate? I don't care. You better not be here when I get back. Just screaming. The man I married is not the man I'm married to. And feeling just very fearful, quickly realizing, well, what happens if I am here when he gets back? I called my sister, who lived in St. Louis at the time, and asked her if I could. I'm just sobbing. I'm like, I don't know what happened, and I need to leave, and can I come stay with you tonight? So we stayed there that night, and he called around midnight, just calling me, and saying, I'm going to call the police if you don't tell me exactly where you are. So finally I said, I'm in St. Louis visiting my sister, and, I'll probably be back tomorrow. But he was sorry, and so I came back, and I wanted to resolve things. I didn't want it to be a tumultuous relationship or there to be any conflict. I wanted to forgive, and I wanted to believe that he was the man that I thought I married. I wanted to believe that. But right when I had returned, he said, you didn't tell your parents, did you? And I said, no, I don't think my sisters told my parents. My sisters did find out, though. And immediately he was like, you told your sisters? And well, I had to stay with Amanda, and then they found out as well. And so that he really shamed me for, you shouldn't have even told them. Why did you tell them what happened? He really had kind of the isolating down, making sure that I wasn't telling anyone what was happening, making me feel guilty if I did. We had planned to go be with his family for Thanksgiving week, and with his job, he had the whole week off. So we had planned to drive from Columbia to Denver, and we did. And I remember as we were pulling out of Columbia, bringing up something like finances, and just wanting to talk about our financial situation, and that was what triggered him. He started just becoming very volatile again in the car, just screaming at me, and that escalated as we kept driving, to then eventually he said, I just have half the mind to drop you off on the side of the road. And I remember looking at him at this point, it's November, and I knew I was due in February, so I was very far along. And looking at him like, we were in the middle of nowhere. I mean, in the middle of nowhere, Kansas, on our way to Colorado. I kept trying to reason with him and de-escalate him, but nothing worked. So then he pulls over on the next exit and pulls probably about a mile off the exit to a grocery store and starts, getting my bags out. And I said, I'm going to go to the bathroom and then come out and get my bags. And so I did. And I came back out and I said, I think you should call my dad and tell him to come pick me up and what you're doing. And then immediately it just switched. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. It's almost like a different person would come out. Just, oh, I should have never said that. I don't know. Please don't call your parents. Please, I'm just so sorry. I don't know what came over me. Please get in the car. Please, just get in the car. What do you do? Do you get back in the car with this man that's terrifying? Or do you wait in the middle of nowhere as a very pregnant woman with no one around and ask for my family to drive hours to come pick me up? So I did. I got back in the car. So we made it to Colorado finally, and that night, and we go in to see his family, and he had acted like nothing happened that day. Like, it's great. We're all doing great. Here's my pregnant wife to show off to everyone. And, in front of everyone, probably in front of 15 of his family members, he goes, oh, Morgan, can I rub your feet? I'd love to give you a foot rub. I bet your feet are exhausted after this trip. And, again, I was caught in a moment of, what the heck is happening? Like, this is not how today has gone. It was in front of everyone that he offered. And so I remember saying, sure, that'd be great. And he did, in front of everyone. Everyone was complimenting him like, wow, you're so amazing. And, what a great husband you are. And I just remember thinking, this is so not authentic. This isn't true. This isn't the reality that we're living. Today, I almost got dropped off in the middle of Kansas. Charlie was born in February of 2018. And Charlie was the biggest blessing, is the biggest blessing of my life. Once Charlie was born, I really, because of him, woke up to the abuse. All of a sudden, things that I had allowed myself to experience, and I had allowed myself to be treated in certain ways by his dad, all of a sudden when Charlie was born, it was like, oh no, I am not going to let that happen to this baby. One of the nights that my mom was with us, she had heard Charlie's dad pressuring me into making a decision that night. I think Charlie was 3 or 4 days old. She had heard his dad pressuring me to make the decision that day whether or not we were going to be moving to Denver. And, I had been trying to reason with him like, we just have a newborn. We can't make a decision in a day. We do. We need to make this decision today, just badgering me and twisting my words. And prior to that, he had told all of our family about the month before that we were moving to Omaha, where my family was. And, so my mom kind of said, like, I thought you had talked to our family and friends that you guys were moving to Omaha, but, now you're not. And she just said, I just want to make sure that your words are lining up with your intentions. And that was enough. So then he started yelling at my mom in the kitchen, screaming at her. My mom she's worked with mental health for her whole life. So she knows how to de-escalate a situation, but she was shaking because of his body language and behavior, and thankfully she was able to kind of de-escalate him a little bit, but he was just volatile that week towards her, towards me. And so I think that was the first time that she really was clued in. We had at that point been married almost a year, but I think her living with us that long was the first time she was clued in, like, something's not right. On Monday morning, I came to him and said, so it's just the two of us and Charlie there. I said, look, my mom has been basically my only support this week with Charlie, and I really need you to mellow out. You need to calm down. You can't be volatile like this. We have a newborn. He can't be around this. And I just said, if you can't, like, maybe we need to go stay with my family for a little bit so that you can get help, because Charlie can't be in this environment. And so then he looked very coldly at me, like he had done many times, no emotion, and said, okay, well, I'll pack your bags then, and I'll pack Charlie's too. drove all the way to Omaha. Charlie was 1 week old. I remember my mom saying, Morgan, something's not right, but I'm your mom and I'm probably biased. So you need to go talk to someone. Just go tell someone we need you to see a therapist, and you just need to tell them what's happened. So I did. I went to a therapist and told her almost everything that had happened the year before. And she just said, wow, you have been experiencing the cycle of domestic violence for this last year. And here is what it is. And she explained, all the stages of the cycle. And I think I was in a little bit of denial, like, domestic violence? Me? It's just like, what? It really, but also when she showed me the cycle, it was very clear, like, yes, I can't believe that I'm saying that, but yes, this has been exactly what I've been experiencing. So she had said, don't return without a safety plan and until he agrees to get help. And the plan that he agreed to basically was just no lying, no manipulating, no telling me where I can and can't go, no kicking us out, no explosions of anger, no threatening me. It seemed like very reasonable things. And if you can't abide by it, then you need to leave the house, because Charlie and I cannot leave every time. You need to leave until you're ready to abide by our safety plan, and you're going to get help. And so he had agreed to that. But after one day, it went right back to how it was. And he was having to leave several times a day. Then he started saying, if you leave the border, cross the border of Missouri again, without my permission, I'm going to call the cops, and I'm going to charge you with kidnapping our son. So I called the police department and just said, I don't know if this is true or not. I'm just trying to find out whether or not this is true. Would I be arrested? And the policeman I talked to, he kind of laughed and he said, what? If he's your son, you can take him across state lines to visit family. He won't get arrested. And he's like, what's going on though? Your husband is saying this to you? So he started asking questions and he wanted to open a case file. So that was it. He opened a case file. Well, Charlie's dad found out about it that week. And so then it all became that he wanted to clear his name, and that became a whole thing. I had come across this email of him, he and his dad had put together, full of all lies. Just, I'm so sorry. My wife struggling with postpartum depression, and I've just been trying to keep a peaceful home. And I just wanted to clear my name with you guys, and that they were going to be sending to law enforcement. And that was just my tipping point. I confronted him about it that day and said, what is this? You keep saying that you're going to be honest, but you won't even be honest to law enforcement. You're lying to them. You know the truth. You need to leave then if you're not going to be going by our safety plan. No, I'm not leaving. So then he's not even, with our agreement. So I'm like, well, then I will. Charlie and I cannot be in this situation. I called my parents and said, where do I go? I don't know what to do. He can't go by the safety plan. Again, they didn't know very many details. And my mom just said, well, why don't you go to the police station? Just ask them, what are your options? Can you leave? My parents right away were like, we'll support however we can. And so I did go to the police station with Charlie. And the police officer kind of talked to me and said, well, you can go to our domestic violence women's shelter and I'll escort you there. I just never thought that I would be someone that would end up at a shelter. Here I come from this amazing family. My immediate family and my extended family. Just an absolute incredible family. I've had the best childhood growing up, gone to the best schools. I'm a nurse. I feel like I'm a put-together person my whole life. I've made good choices. I've not taken the easy road on a lot of things. I wasn't a partier. I've never been into any kind of drugs. Not even much of a drinker. I've never been any of that. I thought, which is horrible, but I had a prejudice that women that end up here made bad decisions. They made bad choices in life, and they almost intentionally got into bad relationships, or, I just never thought that coming from such a good background, I would be at this place. It was very humbling and very eye-opening that this can happen to anyone of any background. So we did file for legal separation then at that point. And I wasn't ready to file for divorce. We hadn't even been married a year, and I still, again, had just a seed of thought in me that he was a good person and was capable of being the person that I thought I had married. He was granted 2 weeks of visitation in Omaha with Charlie, and since he hadn't really been part of Charlie's life much, he hadn't visited us in Omaha or been, really around Charlie much, the judge granted that I could be a part of the visitations as well, since Charlie was so little and still exclusively breastfed at that point. So I thought I would just maybe go for the first few just to help him acclimate to Charlie, and then I would just let them have their time for those 2 weeks. But they really did not go well, to say the least. That night was supposed to be an overnight for Charlie with his dad, and my friend had come with me, and we had just been there for a few hours with Charlie, and she had said she wanted to call 911 several different times throughout the visit just because of how violent it was and volatile. So those visits were horrific, traumatizing for Charlie, traumatizing for me, traumatizing for even friends that I brought with. So over the past few years, I have been involved in therapy continuously with therapists that specialize in domestic violence. And early on, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. And just I've had a lot of those symptoms, even just that that were displayed even during exchanges. It was very triggering to see Charlie's dad at exchanges, to send Charlie as a newborn alone with my abuser into visitations for 24 hours to days at a time. And then to see Charlie's reactions after the visitations also were very traumatic. You never really are truly free from your abuser if you have a child with them, with the way that the court system is established and the way the laws are written. The court proceedings were very terrifying, with his attorney questioning you and downplaying what happened. That was re-traumatizing. Social workers that were involved downplaying what was happening, even downplaying Charlie's responses to his dad, all felt very re-traumatizing. What I would want to tell anyone else experiencing this kind of abuse or in a confusing situation like I was, where you're not sure if it's abuse or not, I would want to tell them to seek help, talk to a counselor, preferably someone who specializes in domestic violence, even if you don't know if that's what it is yet. And I would just want to encourage anyone that's out there that there is hope, and that the first step really is just leaving. Follow your gut, because it's probably right. If your gut's saying that things aren't quite right, like mine was, yours is probably right as well. Our situation is certainly not perfect still, and certainly difficult. But I would never trade this for the world. I'm so grateful that Charlie knows normalcy now. He knows what it looks like to have a peaceful home. He knows what security and real love looks like, especially in his home. He knows the difference, and that will change his life. It will change how he is as a partner someday. It will change everything. It changes his secure attachments that he's been able to form in a safe place. If we never would have left, I don't know if I would even be here. I don't know what life would look like.
Just really hope that people will hear the difference your organization makes. Had we not had your help, I have no idea where we would be. I really, I hope that people can really understand the difference your organization makes, and just how critical it is in this battle.